This is King Noble Black Supremacy. And with this particular video, I want to talk about how Trump presidency proves that the United States government is not about the Constitution, but appealing to the whims of the elite. And this just came out with some new statements that he made recently, where he was speaking to the notorious, treacherous NYPD. And in him speaking to them, the most heightened part of his dissertation is when he suggested that the NYPD be tougher on criminals. That they treat criminals in a tougher way. Don't be nice to them. That when you're arresting a guy that's suspected of some type of crime, he said murder or whatever, that instead of trying to secure their head and sitting them in the paddy wagon or the police vehicle, that don't worry about trying to secure their head and make sure that their head doesn't hit the car. Be rough with them, throw them in there, bang them up. This is statements by the President of the United States of America. As though NYPD is not already rougher on criminals, tougher on criminals, as though they're somehow nice in NYPD when it comes to crime. We know about the killings in New York of unarmed black men. Eric Garner. So wherever, I don't know what news he's been watching or what newspaper he's reading, but no one is under the impression that the NYPD is nice with criminals, with suspected criminals, and that they're not tough on crime. However, I digress. The statement that Trump has made about them not being nice to criminals is actually unconstitutional. Because when they arrest when they arrest a suspect in America under the United States Constitution, they are innocent into proven guilty. So the police officer is not the judge, is not the prosecutor. It's really not even the correctional officer or the warden. He's just a process server. So it's not his job to execute judgment on the so-called suspect or assailant. No matter how much he may be under the impression that the suspect is guilty, it's not his job to cast a verdict or to sentence the suspect. He doesn't have to be nice or tough. He just needs to act within the boundaries of law to serve the process. To carry out his oath of office of defending the Constitution. It's not his job. He's supposed to protect the rights of the suspect and protect the rights of the so-called victim or those offended by the offender. What Donald Trump suggested was unconstitutional, which further proves to me that this country is not about the Constitution. Period. So anyone thought that that's the main theme of this country are totally and absolutely asleep. When Donald Trump can come to the NYPD and come down to New York and make a statement like that before the police department, and none of those officers have loyalty to their oath to challenge these obnoxious and insensitive statements that Donald Trump has made has shown that this country is not about the Constitution. Because the Constitution would protect the rights of the citizens. But it's really about appealing to the whims of the elite. And whatever the whim of the elite is, if they want to make, if fear of black is the new whim, is a new concern, or MS-13, or immigrants, whatever the new whim is of the elite, will influence policing, will influence local law enforcement, will influence this country. And that influence can override the fundamentals of which this country is supposed to stand on, the principles of which it's supposed to stand on, which would be the United States Constitution. But these crackers and devils can get in office, and depending on what they whim is, override that. And they can influence these cops and influence law enforcement and get them turned up, get them riled up, so that they have no problem disregarding their oath of office and disregarding the constitutional rights of the citizens of which they are supposed to protect. The hell with all that. Ram their head up against the police car. Be more brutal. You cast a verdict against the so-called criminal. You cast judgment. Don't be nice to someone who is innocent to proven guilty. You would want to be nice to someone who was innocent. But no, treat them like they're guilty now. Operate off your racial profiling. Operate off your racism. Operate off your witch hunting. Operate off your Islamophobia, your hatred of immigrants, your racism. And mistreat these individuals. Disregard their humanity. And feel proud about it. Feel brave about it. The problem with these statements is not that it disregard a constitution that this country never regarded to begin with. That is so many interpretations by the Supreme Courts and so many narratives and perspectives on what the laws mean and how they need to implement and apply those laws, and how counties and states and municipalities disregard those laws and make up laws that are unconstitutional that they enforce every single day. I was never under the auspices that the United States of America had anything to do with the Constitution. Because they continue on a state and local level constantly to make laws that are obviously unconstitutional. Unarguably unconstitutional. But they'll get you some spin doctrine prosecutor, some spin doctrine judge to reinterpret these laws in order to justify disregarding the Constitution, essentially. But that's not the major issue with this. The major issue is igniting race war in this country that allows the elite to implement martial law in this country. It's not about the NYPD cop or the poor innocent citizen or non-citizen, the poor human being that they're inflicting injury on them under the auspices of being some type of hero or some type of good cop or doing their job. It's about that. It's about the race war brewing. It's about energy constantly fed into the division in this country, dividing person against person, group against group, institutions against institutions, citizen against citizen, worker against worker. That's a greater problem. Because if the police become less nicer, the militants will become less nicer. The radical groups will become less nicer. The gangbangers will become less nicer. The criminals will become less nicer. And we will all live in an America that's not so nice anymore. And not only will America not be great again, it also won't even be a nice place to live anymore. While the elites sit back hiding in their bunkers, heavily surrounded by guards, the masses of people will be swimming in the blood of their neighbors, swimming in the blood of their public servants. And those who are supposed to serve will be swimming in the blood of those of whom they're supposed to serve, while the elite just sit back and ignorantly make these statements and abuse their power, their position, and their influence for daily entertainment. The bad thing about this is not the disregard of a constitution that they never regarded, but how volatile and how hostile this country will become that we live in. How violent. And the violence of these countries, El Salvador, the home of MS-13, Iraq, Syria, the violence of these countries will visit us. The violence that you see in Europe, in Paris, in France, in London, will be right here in the United States of America. As long as this type of rhetoric and this type of ideology and this type of influence is fed to the masses of asses, whether they be employees for the government or radical militarized groups in this country who are anti-government. The division is being fed by these statements. The citizens no longer just have to fear the police when brutality is praised. The citizens are going to have to fear the citizens who decide to fight back in ways that have no respect or consideration for other humanity. The police with their jobs who may not buy into this violence, who may not buy into that narrative, who won't trade off their job to protect the Constitution, the constitutional rights of those whom they serve. They won't trade that off for some type of good feeling of being a vigilante for the whims of the elite. But they will also be victims of violence in a not so nice America. I had to go in on this. This is King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnobleuncensored.com. Donate, don't hate. Subscribe to my YouTube page right now, King Noble Guru. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button for this video. And make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications when I put my videos out. Follow me on Instagram, King Noble Uncensored.c.o.m. black supremacy.